In freedom of religion news, a religious school in New Jersey wanted to insist that its teachers have personal conduct in their own personal lives that comported with Catholic teachings. The teachers sued, saying that, that wasn't a reasonable requirement of their job, but the New Jersey courts have disagreed, saying the Catholic school can, in fact, require its teachers to follow Catholic teachings, even in their personal lives and on their own time. So this gets into the whole ecclesiastical exception to, basically all the public accommodation laws. There is, of course, a requirement that businesses not discriminate on the basis of religion or some perceived religion. You can't do that. But if your business is religious in its nature, right? What if you are a religious business? Well, then things get a little bit more tricky, obviously, because now it's not so much that the government is requiring you to not discriminate on other people's religions. They're requiring you to abandon your own religion, which obviously they can't do because the government cannot put in any barriers for someone else's religion. So this gets into the issue of whether or not the business is truly religious in its nature, and also whether the role is religious in its nature, which can get very, very complicated as you try to figure out the difference between whether this is an ecclesiastical role or a secular role. So is teaching at a Catholic school ecclesiastical? Is it secular? Is it somewhere in between? So does the school have to accommodate other people's religions, or do they have to, or are they allowed to have their own religion? It can get very technically complicated, but at least in this case, the New Jersey court said the Catholic school can require its teachers to be Catholic both in word and in deed. So let's go ahead and get started with this. The New Jersey Supreme Court on Monday unanimously upheld a Catholic school's ability to enforce an employee code of conduct in line with Catholic moral teaching and to fire teachers who violate that code, even on their own time. The ruling in Victoria Cristillo versus St. Theresias School further solidifies the ability of New Jersey religious schools of all types, of course, to enforce moral codes of conduct in line with religious practice. So can you make the teachers behave in a way in conformity to the religion, even on their own time? When you're a religious school giving religious instruction, maybe yes, you can. So that's what we're doing. The ruling provides Catholic schools in New Jersey with a significant new protection against lawsuits brought by employees who do not follow the schools of conduct, according to an attorney with a law firm specializing in religious freedom cases. In an amicus brief filed in support of the school, was a National Orthodox Jewish advocacy organization as well, because of course this would impact other religions beyond Catholicism or Christianity. So other religions would have a support in this, and so they're like, yeah, we like that rule too. According to the amicus brief, as the New Jersey Supreme Court recognized, religious schools have the right to require teachers to follow their faith in word and in deed. They added, although the ruling centers on New Jersey law, it will have knockout effects around the country as a pervasively written decision, because obviously many states have their own version of religious discrimination law in addition to federal law. So a place of public accommodation cannot discriminate on the basis of religion as it relates to customers. That's Title II. So a place of a business cannot discriminate on its customers. They can't refuse service to a customer or deny an advantage or provide or lack of any service on the basis of religion. So Title II can't discriminate against the customers. Title VI, same for the employees. You can't discriminate on the basis of religion as it relates to the employees. But what if you are a religious institution, right? So now you're not discriminating just because of religious animus. You're not discriminating just because you don't like people of a particular faith. You're discriminating specifically because it's an exercise of your own faith in a business that is faith-oriented, right? So that's sort of the key, that this is an ecclesiastical role, right? This is a religious role. And so now discrimination on the basis of religion is sort of required because it's in the nature of what you're trying to do. And so, the First Amendment is going to trump Title VI and Title II. So that's kind of what's going on and all that. The lawyer emphasized that just like Catholics or other religious schools, it's crucial that Orthodox Jewish people in New Jersey have autonomy in religious matters. So, fair enough. The Government stays off the religion, and the religion stays out the government, or at least that's the idea. The case revolved around a woman named Victoria Cristello, who was an art teacher at the school at the Archdiocese of Newark. The employment was terminated because, according to the school, she violated the terms of her contract by engaging in premarital sex, according to the court documents. The contract required that she abide by Catholic moral teaching, including regarding sexual behavior. So the problem was that she is an art teacher at a Catholic school, and she decided to have sex outside of marriage. She did it on her own time. It didn't involve any students. It didn't involve anything illegal. So nothing like that. She just decided to, have intercourse, as a woman might. But the school is like, wait a second, that's a violation of our religious teachings. You can't do that. And she's like, yes, I can. It has nothing to do with my teaching, right? So this is the conflict, right? Because I can still be a good person and teach all the Catholic things. This has nothing to do with me in my teaching or what I'm teaching. This has to do with my own life and my own private time. And the school's all like, but nah, fam. We want this to be a religious institution, and you're not abiding by our religious structures. So no. So that was the issue. And it's like, yep, you can require her to remain abstinent if you want to, because it's part of your faith. And this is a religious school, and this is ecclesiastical in its nature. So it's basically religion all the way down, freedom of religion, freedom of association. So, yep, the principal at the time decided to not renew the contract after it was revealed the woman was pregnant. So that was our clue, that you would engage in the premarital sex. We can't help noticing that you're both pregnant and not married. So that was an indication to us. Later that year, the woman sued the school for discriminating against her based on pregnancy and marital status. So it's like, you're discriminating against me because of pregnancy. That's a discrimination on the basis of sex. You're discriminating me based on marital status. That's illegal too. Normally, you would be right. Normally, that's illegal. Normally, a business cannot discriminate in its employment or in its services based on pregnancy or marital status. Those are both protected classes. But then, of course, this is not your ordinary normal business, now is it? This is a religious institution, a religious school with the ecclesiastical teaching. So, all that civil rights law has to bend to the First Amendment because that's in the nature of the thing. The school responded to all this by arguing that the woman was not terminated because of pregnancy as such, but terminated for violating the code of conduct by not following the tenets of faith by engaging in sex outside of marriage. So to the degree that we want to split the difference, to the degree we want to split the baby, we didn't fire her because she was pregnant. We fired her because she had sex outside of marriage, which, fair enough, because if she had been sexually assaulted, right? If she had been sexually assaulted, we could split the difference. It's like, because it wouldn't go to her voluntary behavior. And of course, Catholics don't believe in abortion either. So if she had gotten pregnant through means other than her own voluntary acts, then they wouldn't have fired her. So the school does have a bit of a point, right? It's a thin distinction, but one that makes sense within the Catholic faith. It's not that we didn't fire her because she's pregnant. If she had gotten pregnant through actions that she didn't participate in, she didn't authorize, she wasn't volunteer, we would have kept her on board if she was pregnant, because we recognize the sanctity of life. The problem isn't that she's pregnant. The problem is that she got pregnant through her own voluntary action outside of a marital context. So that's the problem. So it's a thin distinction, but one that makes sense within Catholicism. Though the case was originally rejected by the New Jersey trial court, the appellate decision sided with the woman, after which the church appealed to the state's highest court. So the trial court said no to the woman. The appellate court said yes, this is unlawful discrimination. And the Supreme Court of New Jersey said no, it's not. The 7-person Supreme Court ultimately ruled in favor of the church and the religious schools in a unanimous decision. In the ruling, the New Jersey Supreme Court writes, religious tenets exceptions allow St. Theresias to require its employees as a condition of employment to abide by Catholic law, including they abstain from premarital sex. Now, I think it's worth noting here, by the way, that this has to do specifically with religious education and religious role and ecclesiastical roles. So this can get very complicated, all right? Because if she were a janitor at the school, okay, then the school wouldn't be able to fire her because the role is not ecclesiastical in its nature. So it's not that the school is a church or that the church is a church. This would be true even of a church, right? If you're a church, if you're a full fat blooded church, all right, and you hire someone to be a janitor at your church, you can't discriminate on the basis of religion. Why? Because there's nothing religious about the job. The job is to be a janitor. The job is just to clean up. And also, we've seen this, for example, at food kitchens. There have been cases on this point, right? Where a person has been fired or not hired or discriminated against by a church, but the person worked at a food kitchen that was offered by the church. Their role was to do the food kitchen thing, right? They offer a pantry for people to get food. They do, they provide soup to the poor, whatever it is, right? They do this as part of their mission, which makes sense. It's good to feed the poor. That's a good thing to do. So the church would like to feed the poor. Great. They hired the person specifically and solely to work in the kitchen or to even run the kitchen, right? Can we fire that person on the basis of religion? No, we can't. No, we can't, because there's nothing in the role that requires it to be religious, right? So this is why I'm saying, you have to be careful. The issue isn't necessarily, is it a church or not? Or is it religious or not? It has to be specifically a religious role, right? A priest or some kind of equivalent, right? So are we a priest or something akin to that, right? And in this case, we say, yes, you are, right? Because you're being hired specifically for religious education in the school, of the religious school, in a religious school for the education. So that's where we say, aha, this is ecclesiastical in its nature. This is not secular in its nature. This is not being a janitor. This is not running a soup kitchen. This is specifically religious in its nature. So the church can't discriminate against the janitor. They can't discriminate against the food kitchen person, but they can discriminate against the teacher because of its ecclesiastical nature. And this is where it pays to make sure that you're paying attention to these distinctions and where the law gets fun. All right, let's press on. The woman, who is apparently a practicing Catholic and a graduate of the school, acknowledged that the school required her to abide by the tenets of the faith, including she abstained from premarital sex as a condition of employment. In other words, she knew that the school required adherence to Catholic law, and they knowingly violated Catholic law, which is haram, as our Islamic friends would say, right? When you violate Catholic law, right? That's haram. Can't do that. They would like to have a word with you. Peter Venero, counsel for St. Teresa School, told CNA this is significant validation of the school's rights as a religious employer, which is the key. And also, it's not just that they're a religious employer, it's that the nature of the employment itself was religious in its nature, because that's an important detail. We're pleased the Supreme Court upheld the rights of religious employees' acts consistent with religious tenets, and the court found that they did so here. Equally important, the court found no evidence of unlawful discrimination in this case. Thus, that brings us to the end of the story about the New Jersey private religious school that fired a woman who was an art teacher at the school because she had sex outside of marriage. And they don't let that happen. And she's like, wait a second, you're discriminating against me because I'm a woman. You're discriminating against me because I'm pregnant. You're discriminating against me for sexual, because of improper reasons. You can't do that. And normally, yes, you can't do that. Normally, you can't do that. But when you're an ecclesiastical institution and you're hiring someone specifically in an ecclesiastical role, that is to say, a priest or equivalent, yes, you can do that, because despite the Civil Rights Act, despite Title II, despite Title VI, despite the Civil Rights Act, despite New Jersey's version of it, right, the First Amendment. And the First Amendment, of course, has to trump at the end of the day. So can you require the teacher at the Catholic school to abstain from sex? Yes, you can. If that is your belief, yes, you can do that because the nature of the role is religious in its nature because it's a religious school and you're providing religious instruction. So fun. So now we've learned all there is to know about this case, and that for the moment brings us end the discussion of this story.